Welcome to the With You Rugby podcast, designed to give you an in-depth look at the United States Rugby Foundation, including our grant programs and recipients, fundraisers, events, and much more. Now let's get started. Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Vizard, president of the United States Rugby Foundation, and I want to welcome you to another of our With You Rugby podcasts. And as we get closer to our 2024 U.S. Rugby Hall of Fame induction ceremony presented by Major League Rugby, we thought it'd be a good idea to get to know this year's Hall of Fame inductees and special award recipients just a little bit better. And today I'm pleased to welcome former Xavier High School and New York AC player and coach, U.S. Eagle 15's head coach, PR7's general manager, and a 2024 U.S. Rugby Hall of Fame inductee, Mr. Mike Tolkin. Welcome, Tolks. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Viz. Thanks a lot for having me. I look forward to having a good chat with you.
Yeah. So where are you? Are you in your home office or where are you today?
I am. I'm in my home office here in beautiful Manhattan.
As we do with all our inductees and honorees, Mike, tell us a little bit about your upbringing. What sports did you play? Where'd you grow up? And some of the things you did as a kid.
I grew up in New York City, in Manhattan, Lower East Side, and probably like a lot of rugby players, played just about every sport when I was growing up. We had the concrete jungle here in New York, but we always found a way, whether it was on playground or small patch of grass. So it was baseball, basketball, hockey, you name it, soccer. I got my involvement there.
Yeah. So how'd you get introduced to rugby?
It's funny. When we were growing up, some of my friends' older brothers played in high school, and we thought it was pretty cool. We try to play tackle football where we could and kill the carrier, those types of games. And, we love the contact. And then all of a sudden we discovered this rugby thing that was kind of like football and kill the carrier. So, really became interested in it. And probably in like 7th grade, just started playing with a couple of friends, like total makeshift makeup games. We didn't know the rules. So it was basically tackle, get up, put the ball under your foot, and do it again for 2 hours, as you can when you're 11 years old.
Right. Now, you were on the Xavier High School in New York City, Xavier High School rugby team that won its first high school national championship title. That must have been quite a thrill for the team. What do you remember about that run to that national championship?
Yeah, Viz, that was a cool year. I think senior year in high school is great. And to put that on top, is good. It was one of the earliest years of the Nationals. So I remember we had an excellent team. And early in the year, we went on a tour to Hawaii, Los Angeles, Salt Lake City. So obviously that's amazing. And then we just, at the end of the year, we were a good team, but we were in a real good groove. We were just playing great rugby, and myself in particular, I was playing fly half, and I remember just, really hitting my stride. And we played the week before the Nationals. We played the East Coast Championship. And in those days, it was 3 games in a day, and Northeast in May was really hot. So I remember that. And then back down to DC for the Nationals. And we had teams from California, Salt Lake, Virginia. And we, again, 3 games in a day. And it was brutal, but right in front of the National Monument, we won 7-6 over Highland. So it was really a special day and an amazing thing for a New York school.
Who was the coach back then for Xavier?
It was a coach called Nigel Milton. He coached me all my 4 years at Xavier. He was originally from England. Back there, we're still friends to this day, and hopefully he's at the dinner, the Hall of Fame dinner. Good. You make it. But he was really influential, and he was a great coach.
Now Xavier High School rugby team, they've had great success over the years. What do you think the key or keys are that have been for their continued run of success?
I think the first thing, was tradition. It's really become a tradition. It was really, the sport of the school for a while. Football's been a dominant sport there, but rugby became such a winning tradition, and people really respected that, and people wanted to become part of the program. It wasn't everyone who could play, but they became part of a winning tradition. And when I was coaching, we toured a lot, and we used to use a recruiting campaign of a little borrowed from the Navy, play rugby, see the world. So that helped attract kids over, and it just kept growing, that tradition, that winning, and the customs really followed.
Yeah, you played soccer in high school as well, and then from Xavier went to St. John's University, where you continued to play soccer and rugby. What were a couple of your athletic highlights from your days at St. John's?
Yeah, I loved soccer, and I had to make a choice going into college, and I was lucky enough to get a scholarship, so that helped make the choice. We played in the Big East tournament at the time, and teams like UConn were national powerhouses. And I started as a freshman and got the assignment of covering some of the top goal scorers. And so that was big for me, that coach had confidence and that I was on that stage. And Storrs had a great little stadium to play the Big East tournament. And playing down in Navy when we used to take trips down to Annapolis, that was pretty cool because all the plebes were it was mandatory to go down there, that they had to go out to the game. So they were all singing their songs, abusing you. And, it's intimidating, but it's fun. And, so great experiences. And I was a defender. The only goal I scored in college was in Pitt Stadium, big, football stadium, 70,000, and almost no one was there. But I took a shot. It was the worst shot I ever took, but somehow it trickled in, and it was a game winner. And we won that, and it helped us get in the Big East that year. So those are good memories of playing ball at St. John's.
Yeah. Did the coach have any qualms with you playing rugby if you're on a soccer scholarship?
No, he didn't actually. And it was limited. It was in the spring, really. So it was limited. And so it didn't overlap. And he didn't have a big problem with that. He knew it was a big part of me. So, yeah.
Now, you stayed in New York after graduating from St. John's, started playing rugby for the New York AC. You had great success on the soccer pitch as well. What were your influences that you selected rugby over soccer?
Yeah, that's a good question. I always loved rugby from when I started playing. And I think with soccer, especially in those days, there wasn't a big path forward. It wasn't like there was no MLS, and, there were definitely pro league, an ASL and the Cosmos and all that. But it wasn't really something that was, up there in a clear pathway. So I loved rugby. Soccer seemed I was going to always play pickup, but rugby, there was so much more opportunity, both coaching and playing. And, I loved that, and the travel and all of that. So I think that was the biggest motivation, was the opportunity. Yeah.
Now, did you have choices, or was the plan always to stay in New York after school?
No, it wasn't. I think, how decisions lead on to each other. But in actuality, my senior year in college, when I was coaching Xavier, I took the guys on a tour to New Zealand and Australia. And we went for almost a month, in June into July. And my plan was to stay there. And I did. The team left, and I stayed. And I was going to play down, I think it was Warringah down in the Sydney area. And I was there for 6 months. And then I got an opportunity to get a job back in the city. And I went. And, who knows what would have happened if I didn't take that job. I might still be there. Yeah. So I was pretty happy there. But I must say, money was running tight, and, that probably helped in the decision. But it wasn't always the plan to stay in New York. It was definitely open.
Yeah. And, let's talk about your days at Nyack. You had a great career there. Tell us about some of the highlights from your playing career with the New York AC.
Yeah, it was, and I think playing in a city like New York, you get to have a lot of international interaction with players coming over from overseas. And so that was the first big thing, going from high school and college where, you're not really playing with internationals, and all of a sudden, bang, you're in a field and most of the players there are internationals. So I learned a lot. There were great players from different teams, whether they were full-on internationals or played clubs overseas. That was big. Getting into, I think, around, the late 90s, early 2000s, we finally cracked into the national playoffs, top 16. So that was big, and those were great experiences. And then playing local rep ball, both for the Met Union, a little bit for the old Eastern Rugby Union, and playing with and against some of the great guys, some of your contemporaries, like, you talk about Gary Lambert, Kevin Swords, some of the great guys. So those were really great experiences, and finally getting some success as a player into Sweet 16.
Good. Now, did you start coaching at Xavier while you're at St. John's, or playing for New York AC?
No, at St. John's. It was literally because I stayed local, they needed some help. And so my freshman year, I assisted the team. And in my sophomore year at St. John's, I took over as head coach. So I was literally like 18 or 19, and I took over as head coach at Xavier. So sophomore year of college, coaching Xavier, playing with the athletic club.
Wow. That's a
So
load,
it was
right?
full. It was full, but it was great. I really loved coaching because I just couldn't get enough of thinking about the game and organizing and seeing how we can get better. And in those days, Viz, you remember here in the States, there wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot of resources. Few
Right.
books. The old VHS
Yeah.
videos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Watching you play, watching some of the overseas games. There wasn't a lot. So every nugget you got, you really couldn't get enough of. And then it just grew from there.
Now, was coaching always going to be a plan for the future for you? I mean, it sounded like you're already thinking, even while you're in college, that I want to be a coach.
Definitely. Like once I started, I knew, I loved playing. I trained hard. I made some good steps there. And I was going to go until, I couldn't go anymore. And I loved it, but I knew coaching. I loved coaching, and I knew playing was going to end, soon. And, I just, one thing that always drew me to coach, I always had visions and plans and stuff I wanted to do. And there was always some place to go. There was always room for growth for all of us, players, coach, program. And that really continued to entice me, to motivate me, to intrigue me.
Well, to say you had great success with Xavier is a bit of an understatement as a coach there. Xavier won 18 Northeastern Rugby Championship titles, competed for the high school national championship several times, winning 3 of those. Was there a special team or season that stands out amongst that group of really good Xavier teams?
Yeah, definitely a couple. It's hard to pick out, but I would say the first year we won the national championship in 1993. A great undefeated team. One of the first, maybe the second in our history, and that was a really special team that grew over time. The guys who were seniors there went to Australia, New Zealand as freshmen, so they really grew. I think they got a lot out of that experience. So 93 was a special team, and 90 taking the guys away to New Zealand, Australia was a great team. And 2010 when we won again a national championship was a great team. And yeah, those are a few of the standouts, but tough to pick.
What was the road like winning that first national championship? I'm sure there's a league competition. Then what do you do after you win your league? I assume.
Yeah, it was tough then because there was no bifurcation of single school versus clubs. So in some ways, the single school was good because it was organized. You had everyone there. You can count on them, see them all the time. But on the other hand, you had some schools that were pulling from 4 or 5 programs. And, it's basically an all-star team of some great athletes. If we were able to do that, we had some great athletes that we were pulling from in New York. So that was the challenge of playing against some of those powerhouses in those days. Also, the challenge was not having a field. We were in the middle of Manhattan. We had no playing field, no training field. We had to travel, on a subway. And that was at the end of a day, you know how it is that you're tired. You got to get on a subway and go for 45 minutes with all your bags and stuff every day. And we weren't in beautiful San Diego. We started in February in New York. So
wait a minute, I'm picturing you carrying all these tackle bags on a subway. Is that right?
Yeah, and some interesting parks that we were at. So, but again, that's what makes it rewarding at the end of it.
Sure,
You have all these challenges. So, but that was good.
You touched on a little bit, but while you're leading Xavier, you took the team on 10 international tours. How did that tradition start, and which of those tours was your favorite?
That started before I got there, and that also became one of the traditions of Xavier. So Tom O'Hara, founder of Xavier Rugby, his kids played there. Great guy, and he started taking the teams out to the old. Funny enough, by Amtrak to the Santa Barbara tournament during Easter break, which is amazing. I mean, I couldn't imagine the chaos, in 76, 77. But that's how travel started. And then when I played, we took some tours to Canada, over to Hawaii and LA and Barbados, and that was great. And I continued that. I think the memorable one was the New Zealand, Australia one. But I think also when we went to France, I never really knew much about French rugby in person. And it was an eye opener to how they did things and their way of playing in different regions of France. So that was really cool. That was a good tour.
Well, I know back in my day when we toured France, I mean, it was pretty physical rugby. At the high school stage, was it similar?
Yeah. Like I didn't anyway. Think about the defense. You thought about the flair and how they play. But you get to some of these regions, and it was really hard defense. It was mauling rugby. like you said, it was even at the high school level, it was physical.
Okay, and while you're and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but while you're coaching at Xavier, you took on the role of head coach at New York AC. How did the New York AC opportunity come up, and how are you able to do both and do both successfully?
Well, I was winding down the playing career at Athletic Club, and writing certainly on the wall. You're a smaller guy relying on speed, so that's gonna come to a very clear end. But I was in coaching. I loved coaching. I saw opportunity. We just started to get some success, like I said, nationally, which we had never had. And so I said, you know what? I love this. I think this team has a lot of potential to move forward. And I jumped into it and said, we can do some things and we can really, make a run for the national title here. And like I said before, that was always something, that type of ambition and drive was always something that was in me. Like with Xavier, why can't we win a national title? It was so Western dominated at that time, Pacific dominated. But I said, why can't we do it? They just looked at the things that were happening on the West Coast. Why was success there? What did we have to do to replicate it? And what strengths could we bring? So that was the transition, around 2000, 2001, and some good players. We had a little Oxford, U.S. Eagles kind of influx into the team. That was great for leadership and skill. And that kind of brought us to the next level.
Okay. And how many years did they overlap, you coaching Xavier and New York AC?
The whole time. So
really,
that was about a 12 to 13 year overlap.
Wow.
So I think did
you train on different nights?
With Xavier, we trained almost every day. So it was day after school. And then 2 nights a week, I went to AC training. So there were long days for sure. A young man's business. but there's also like anything. I mean, I put thousands of hours in. So that really helped me. That was important in my development.
Now, Mike, you've had more success with the New York AC as a force in club rugby in the United States from 2004 to 2012, winning 4 U.S. Rugby Super League titles during that stretch. What were some of the highlights of that run that stand out for you, and some of those players that were key to the AC success?
Viz, we started in 22 in the old U.S. Super League, which was a great league. We had strong teams to start, but not much success. We had a great win in 04 at your old place against Ombak on the road. They hadn't lost in 2 years there. Formidable club, famous club, but we battled it out in a tough game and we won that. Gave us a lot of confidence and a springboard to future success. And next year we won a national title. So that was a big win for us and a big time. And we beat Aspen in Florida in the preseason that year. Again, a booster. Some of the great players for us, our leader, Christian Mayo, captain. Mike Petrie came back and played for us. Ali Greer, Aiden Mara, Troy Bartley, Luke Milton, James Hayter, Lou Stanfield, who will be in the Hall of Fame with me, played with great Andrew Lindsay. Those were some of the awesome players, Jackson Wagner, who were on that team. Not all of them household names, but they were great club players, and some of them international and other. So, really, really important times in our development.
Now, your international coaching career for the U.S. started with the U.S. U19s team. You were involved with creating that team. Tell us your involvement about how that program started and some of the highlights coaching that U19 side.
Yeah, that was as a young coach. I was at the national championship high schools in Indianapolis in '91, and I was on the sideline and I met a guy named Tony Smith who was coaching Redmond from Seattle. And Tony and I got to talking. He was originally from England. It's over maybe 2 or 3 years in the States. And we just talked, and we had a lot of the same vision about the game. We were like, wouldn't it be great if we could take the best kids of this tournament and just start playing internationally? And that's how it started. And literally from '91, we got on board. We got some key players in USA, coaches and officials on board. And it started as a nomination team. You had to pay your way. And so that really, you got nominated, and we went through film and everything. It was a big process. But Tony was the head coach. He was out in Seattle. I was the assistant. I was in New York, took care of the East Coast. And Mark Bullock was on that staff as well. He was teammates with Tony in Seattle at the time. And so the three of us kind of put that together took the first tour in '92 to New Zealand, and those tours really cut my teeth. We would start up on the North Island and work our way down, maybe 6 or 7 games, all regions, and it was amazing. But we learned a lot. We got our butts kicked, but we competed and we grew and we started winning. And then we go to Australia, New Zealand every other year. So I did that for about 7 years, and really proud of that, and really helped me grow as a coach.
Good. Well, your coaching continued with the men's national team. You're the defense coach from 2009 through 2011, including 4 tests at the 2011 Rugby World Cup. Tell us about your time as the defense coach with the Eagles, and what do you remember about the 2011 Rugby World Cup?
Defense, as you can relate to, it was never big in rugby union, but in the States also at that time. 2008, I was over at Chula Vista watching one of the Eagles, just an observer, watching them train. And John Muggleton, great rugby league Australian coach, assistant coach, he was coaching the defense, and he was doing all these things that, we never did defensive drills. It was just, hey, play defense for a few phases, and there was nothing organized about it. And it was such an eye opener. And so obviously it's something new to the game and my knowledge. I just couldn't get enough of it. And I brought it back to the athletic club. And I think it really helped our team in '08 when we won the championship. And I just couldn't get enough. And we were doing well. And I met Eddie O'Sullivan, who got appointed Eagles coach. And we talked, and he liked what I was doing. And he asked me to come on. And we really grew. And the guys in the Eagles responded well. They liked it. They liked the physicality, and that there was some good organized defensive structures, and they just grew, and they became a great defensive unit. And a lot of credit to them. It became innate. And then in the 11 World Cup, they performed magically on defense. We held Ireland to 3 tries in that first game, no bonus point. It was a close game till the end. They scored a third late. We shut out Russia, no tries, the last win in the World Cup for the U.S. We played Australia really close, and it was our second team because we had a really quick turnaround. So it was almost our second team. And I think at halftime we were down by like 12 or 14 or something close, playing great. And they opened it up late in the game. And then against Italy, again, another close game. We held them to 3 tries and a close game. So the guys responded well, and I think Viz, like I was always an attack guy, and then I became more defense. But the defense is the pulse of the team. And so for that team in the 11 World Cup, that was amazing.
Well, from there, you're appointed head coach of the Eagles from 2012 through the 2015 Rugby World Cup. The Eagles are ranked 18th in the world when you took over the team, and when you left, they were ranked 13th in the world. That had to make you feel pretty good.
It did. That we built a program. It took time. We were deliberate, and we built a program. And I think it started to pay dividends where we had depth. We were meeting our goals. We wanted to beat Canada on a regular basis, and we were meeting that going into the World Cup, and we had some big wins. So that felt good. And, I think we were 0.4 percentage points away from 12th, and we had the most ranking points in history. So,
Okay.
You remember those things as a coach. So, but it was great. And we were World Rugby, we were the fastest growing team leading into the World Cup. So it was a good feeling. Yeah.
Now, when you were the head coach for Eagles in 34 test matches, including 4 at the 2015 World Cup, is there 1 or 2 matches that stand out in your memory?
Yeah, for sure. I remember there was a game in Georgia, playing on hostile grounds at the Republic of Georgia, and it wasn't at their stadium in Tbilisi, which is hard enough, but it was out in an old communist factory town. So it's pretty shabby and intimidating. And what the Georgians like, they're big guys and aggressive and physical. But we played a great game on the day, and it was touch and go. And we had a chance for a last minute kick from a 50, and we hit it and we won. And it was an amazing win. Georgia was really on the ascent, competing against the great teams in the world. And that was a great win. And another great game. And if I'm not mistaken, Viz, I think you were broadcasting when we played in Philadelphia against the Maori All Blacks.
Yeah.
And I think we lost by 4 or 5, but the stadium was full. They were pumping. It was a crisp night, and everything was going right. And the team, because it was out of window, and a lot of the Europeans couldn't come over. So it was mostly a domestic team. and they competed great. And Cam Dolan almost intercepted one and got run down. And I think it was go ahead. And it was a great game just because of the crowd, the competition, and there was so many domestic guys on there.
Yeah, my memory's not very good these days, but I do remember that was a great thrill calling that game because I remember it was so close. And like you said, the vibe at that stadium was unbelievable.
Yeah. It was one of those American games that really everything clicked in all ways. So it would be great if we can continue to replicate those.
Any memories from that 2015 Rugby World Cup?
Yeah, it was frustrating because I always say that the Rugby World Cups are killers of American coaches because and before, we were building up well, but everything kind of gets on pause. All the momentum you have gets put on pause. And, the memory was that we were close. We just didn't have that rhythm. We were close against, it was 2-2 against Samoa. And we got some tough penalties by the referee. And then in the Scotland game, we're winning at halftime by a point. And then late in the game, they start pulling away and run away. And then the Japan game, they're doing great. Eddie Jones has them upsets. They're winning the conference. And within one try with 8 minutes to go, 6 minutes to go. So we just, to me, we needed just a little time. But I thought we had great players there. I love those guys. And some of them are still on the team to this day. Greg Peterson, AJ McGinty. We just needed a little bit of time more together. And I think we would have performed really well. But we were very competitive, and I was proud of that team.
Good. Now, after your Eagles coaching stint, you became head coach of the MLR's Rugby United New York. You led Rooney to the MLR semifinals. What do you remember your time at Rooney?
It was a chaotic time. It was a chaotic setup in New York City. Our setup was more like a glorified club. We had a park practice field. We had no facilities. So I had to use Xavier facilities for film, for lifting. So a lot of the digging, we had a skeleton staff, but we had good players. We had really good players. A lot of them were still in the league. And we developed a style of play that was hard, physical, and did us well. And I remember when we opened the road, on the road in some of the warm venues. Like we started in San Diego, we went to NOLA, and everyone was like, "Isn't that tough that you're on the road to start?" I go, "We love it. We've been practicing in the freezing cold in New York. We got off the plane into San Diego, into New Orleans, and we're like, we have build so much morale that we love playing." But again, the players were great. We had an awesome season, and we lost to San Diego in the semis, the last play of the game. We just had to have one stop, and then they tied it on the last try. And then I think Peterson hit a kick from the sideline to win it with no time to go. So it was a really good year in that sense, but crazy. It was like the Bronx Zoo, the old Yankees. Crazy.
In 2021, you became minority partner and general manager of PR7s. You're still very hands-on with PR7s. How did the idea of a professional sevens league come about, and what is your role or roles within the league?
Yeah, that was an amazing development. Like Owen Scannell, the CEO and founder, like right towards the end of the pandemic, called me on a recommendation. He's like, "What do you think about this sevens league?" And it was kind of based on the professional lacrosse league, PLL, that model, that idea. And I'm like, "Listen, I'm really intrigued. Like, I was never a sevens guy per se, but I always knew the value of that game in American rugby. It was a gateway to fans, a gateway, I think, to crossover athletes, a development for young athletes into the game. And I thought it was exciting to watch. And I was like, yeah, like, I think that sounds really cool. So we got right to work. We said, we're going to play a rollout in October of that year. He called me in November of 2021, and we were playing in October of 2021. Sorry, that doesn't make sense. 2020, he called me. We rolled out in 21 October, had a great tournament. And we're finding our place in the landscape. We think we have a really good product. It's been fun. It's been a challenge, but it's been fun.
Any new developments in the PR7s this year?
We're looking to get more into grassroots. Like we want to build pathways into the full senior programs. So we think that's a big development for us. With the Olympics, we thought it was wiser to take a little break since most of our players from all countries are involved in that. So we said, let's take a break. We'll work on our youth development and pathways, and we'll get back into it.
Good, good. Now, Mike, you're a player, coach, and now administrator on a number of levels in rugby. Of all your rugby memories, is there one that stands out above the rest?
Yeah, obviously a tough question, as the question posed to you would be. But I remember when I was going to the day of walking over to school to go to the national championships. So I left my New York apartment and I'm walking towards Xavier. And what the hell is a New York City kid doing going to play in a rugby national championship? And I just remember walking through the streets of New York to our bus and driving down there. But that thought, the day was beautiful. And that thought to me, and that thought to me in doing that was like, well, anything's possible. If we can win a damn national championship from the middle of Manhattan, like anything's possible in this game. So that was, I think to me, that directed all other ambitions and memories in rugby.
And looking back on your career, what are you most proud of?
Viz, I'm most proud that I think I've worked hard to build great programs, with good people, great people. Good people make great players. And I think also to credit my coaches. I'm nowhere without all the coaches, managers, admins who worked with me. And I'll mention them at my speech because they deserve it. And many won't get mentioned just because there's so many. But working hard to build good programs that last and being surrounded by quality people and having quality people and being fair to people. They might not have always liked my decisions, but I guarantee I always try to make it the fairest I could. So that's what I'm most proud of in the game.
And one last question, Mike. What does being selected to the United States Rugby Hall of Fame mean to you?
Viz, when I got that call, it was amazing. It's you're busy in your everyday work and your everyday life, and you get a call like that, and it's just so meaningful for me. I'm so proud, to get recognized, for all the stuff that's gone on, for all the people who were behind it. It's amazing for me, and I couldn't be more proud and humbled by that, and to join there's so many great people in rugby and who are in that Hall of Fame already. So thank you to you and the foundation for that.
Well, it's very well deserved, Mike. Congratulations once again. I look forward to shaking your hand in DC here in a little bit.
Piers, always love talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you in a few weeks.
All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for today's podcast. The U.S. Rugby Foundation would like to thank Mike Tolkin for taking the time to be with us today. And to those rugby fans who tuned in, we'll have more With You podcasts in the future. So please sign up for our electronic newsletter on our homepage at usrugbyfoundation.org or look for us on social. For more information about the U.S. Rugby Hall of Fame induction ceremony and other events around the Hall of Fame weekend, visit usrugbyfoundation.org/hall-of-fame-induction. Until next time, stay safe, everyone.